Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
One lottery ticket makes a big difference for our state students. And when I say big, I mean bigger than jackpot big. Since 2002, South Carolina students have benefited from more than $6 billion in lottery-funded scholarships and grants, including the Life, Hope, and Palmetto Fellow Scholarships. With every lottery play, you're supporting our students, and that adds up in a big way. That's why education is our middle name. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
This is your Is All In Really the Way Out? Leader Fan Radio Network, and KFAN.com. 1 minute and 52 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock. That's Central Standard Time. Welcome back. Bumper to Bumper Show is back. It's live. It's local. It is a Thursday edition on a calm after the tsunami potato cake here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. I assumed Guardsy was going to be back, but he's milking another day. Even though the Golden Gopher women's team got eliminated yesterday afternoon. But I digress. I think he's going to be back tomorrow. I hope he'll be back tomorrow. But Brett Blakemore is back in that chair. Was this a surprise to you, or were you in on this all along and I just didn't know it?
I found out shortly after the show yesterday.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, you did find out before I did. And he probably didn't want to bring it to my attention until today because he thought I'd be bitter. Not that I'm bitter
Are you?
at all. No, not me. No, not me. Not in the least. Very good guest lineup today. Hockey will be represented by Russo Radio at 3:30. And then at 4:02, I originally hoped he was going to be in studio, but I think he got too far behind on a very busy schedule day for him. Chip Scoggins will join. Interesting column from Chipper. I don't know what edition of the newspaper it appeared in. I read it online this morning about sort of trying to size up the future of Golden Gopher men's basketball. I know he's also doing some state high school hockey tournament stuff. So we will cover the waterfront with Chip Scoggins at about 4:02 this afternoon. Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line is always available to each and every one of you. 646-86. We're also negotiating with, have you had made any progress coming to terms with Halvey to maybe give us a hit during the top 5 at 5 to talk in between the AA quarterfinal sessions?
I have reached out.
Okay.
We're negotiating.
You're negotiating. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we hope it works out. If not, we'll just play the old Halvey because we always have the old Halvey from 10 years ago out of breath.
Hey, yeah, your call.
Well, part of our idea was let's see how out of breath Halvey would be this time compared to how out of breath he was 10 years ago. Is there a significant change in his deportment, in his demeanor, in his body, in anything? So if we can include him, we'll do so because Louis is not available. Louis is with the Wild, who are in Vancouver. They play, what did we say? That's tomorrow night, right? Friday
night.
A game on the Fan. So that's the plan at this particular juncture. We certainly, as I said, always do encourage your texts. So is All In really the way out? That's the question at the top of today's program. And by all in, in the world of not just sports, actually, but you certainly hear it a lot in sports. It's what? If you want to be successful individually or collectively, you have to be what we have defined as all in, right? Isn't that what people say? Utterly and completely single-minded focus on the task at hand, the challenge at hand. Cannot allow yourself to be distracted. You have to have a singleness of purpose and of commitment to the bit. That's the expression, all in. All in is viewed as the way out. as in the way out of trouble, as in the way out of being just another mediocre team or a mediocre individual athlete. And again, it's not just, we get it in Nike advertisements, that whole trend, and other shoe outlets as well. We get it from social media influencers. And to be honest, we get it, like I said, it not just in the world of sports. And yet, there seems to be greater and greater evidence that all in that single-minded, relentless drive is not all that it's cracked up to be. And that ultimately it might well get in the way of achieving the highest levels of success. So, for example, there's a runner who's written about this subject who is a distance runner. And at some point, apparently, his progress as a runner stalled. So he goes to, who else? A renowned sports psychologist. Who else are you going to go to? And said psychologist tells this runner about a story. It's the story of a world-class runner who had kind of gotten mired in relative mediocrity, making the jump from success in high school and college to Olympic-level performance. And eventually, said runner broke through. Psychologist says, you want to know what helped her? It's a woman in this case, break through. And this particular patient said, yeah, I'm curious. What could it be? What's the secret here that I might be able to use in my case to get to that next level? How do you get to the Olympics? What's the holy grail to get me there? What's the big secret? And according to this runner, this writer of this particular piece, the psychologist looked him in the eyes and said, knitting, as in Knitting. Knitting. How does this add up? How you might think it would. Gave her a different outlet, a way to at least intermittently take her mind off being all in, the all-encompassing, all-consuming goal. Allowed her to relax a little bit. And he goes on to write in this story that there is a great deal of research that seems to confirm the moral of that particular story. It might not be knitting. It could be something else. But according to a 15-year survey of more than 5,000 would-be, in this case, entrepreneurs, forget track stars, those who kept their day jobs instead of focusing only on their own I'm all in project were 33% less likely to fail. Michigan State University looked at over 100 years of Nobel Prize-winning scientists, found they were more likely than their less accomplished peers to have creative interests outside of their own research. Prize winners were 22 times more likely to perform, sing, or act as a hobby. Many of them were into creative writing. Some of them into sculpting, painting, or even, and I know you've always clamored to do this, glass blow. You've always wanted to be a glass blower, haven't you?
I've always said that.
Why wouldn't you? How about athletes? Well, we have discussed this part of the story with Luigi, among others. Those who specialize early in one sport tend to be worse off over the long haul than their compatriots who've dabbled in other activities and specialized later. A 2021 meta-analysis evaluating 6,000 athletes found that those who made it to world-class competition tended to have more multi-sport practice, started their primary sport later, accumulated less practice time, and progressed a bit more slowly. Now, he goes on to write, to be sure, the more we care, and the more our job or pursuit feels like a part of who we are, the harder we'll work. That is helpful to a certain point, but the research continues to indicate that when we say all in, we're actually conveying the wrong message, and that being all in the way we generally define it can often end up working against yielding or gaining the results one expects from he's all in, she's all in. If they're all in, they got a great chance to be like no one else has ever been before. Studies at the University of Ottawa, as most of us know, the 51st state, Canada, found that striving with a hyper-results-oriented approach leads to less experimentation and a propensity to stick to the status quo and avoid challenges. In sports, such striving is at the heart of choking and underperformances. Athletes with a singular identity based on their sport more often experience what's called threat-stress response. When fear of failure dominates, athletes produce more of the stress hormone cortisol. See, this is even getting scientific. And less testosterone, a mixture that nudges us toward avoidance and protection. When we feel challenged but not threatened, it's the opposite effect, more testosterone and less cortisol. When outcomes are all that matter and winning or losing becomes self-defining, our default response isn't to become a warrior, it's to retreat. The secret then, go in a different direction. When the world screams to go narrow, elite performers learn to go broad. Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. And the great irony on all this discussion is that even though you have, in sports, coaches, people who work with athletes and train them, who agree that it's a big blunder to specialize too early, what's the trend? Specialize early. We say all the right things, but in the end we go, yeah, but Johnny down the street, they're going. If my kid doesn't keep up with his specialized training, I'm going to assume the worst, and he's going to get behind. So even as we think we know what is actually healthier and more productive, and will have a better outcome, I still think we many individuals, certainly many parents, can't help it, and obviously. The trainers, the folks in this subculture who make money off of this whole business, they ain't gonna say, "You don't need me," right? Are they? How often are they gonna look you in the eye and say, "No, you don't need to pay me thousands and thousands of dollars to make your kid better at an earlier age. What your kid needs to do is to actually perform in some other sports too, and maybe even learn how to knit." Who's to say? I'd like some reaction. And by the way, I need it not just from the world of athletics, but in the general. We've got a lot of outstanding, clever, successful entrepreneurs out there. Do they agree with this premise, or do they say, no? The only reason I'm successful as an entrepreneur is I was nothing but obsessed. I didn't knit. Everything I did was to get me to this place about my bright idea. Bradshaw and Brian, KFAN text line 64686.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
We've got your shot to win tickets to Summer of Loud 2025, Friday, July 11th at Somerset Amphitheater. See performances from Beartooth, I Prevail, Parkway Drive, and more. I love those bands. Head over our contest page to see how you can win today. KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Text pouring into the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line as rarely before, 64686. Russo Radio, Dateline. Was he in Vancouver? I think he is. I think he's with the club in Vancouver. The Wild back in action tomorrow night here on the Fan against the Canucks. Co-founded company in 91, grew to 1,100 employees. I paid attention 9 to 5, plus minus, but I had I guess he's saying more or less, but had several outside hobbies I pursued. Also flew a lot and would only read novels/magazines on plane, never trade papers. But that's just me. That's interesting in of itself, because the assumption is, well, you got to read trade, but whatever your business is, you just got to immerse yourself in every other idea, what you can steal, what you can borrow, what you can reject. My brother writes, 763 guy, runs a very successful home service business in Minnesota. He really enjoys building model ships in his free time. Helps to relieve the stress. Also, different interests make you more of a well-rounded, interesting person. Let's see what else we got here. Now is my mouse going to fail me at the wrong time? Here we go. Sometimes this mouse is a little finicky here. I loved learning about threat stress response because now I know the medical term for what happened to Sam Darnold in Detroit. Maybe he needed to take up knitting. Maybe as part of the deal, if he does come back to the Vikings, we require that he starts, finding a hobby to take his mind off of the greatest parts of the stress of being a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Dan, part of the problem is you look at the stories that media, ESPN, et cetera, like to cover, and you've got things like showing Tiger Woods as a small child on a putting green with his dad, and everybody thinks that's what I need to be elite. He's 100% right. And it's a human interest story to that extent. It's compelling, and there may well even be some truth to it. That in some cases, that early start is what opened the door. But you're right. It becomes the mythology that I think convinces a lot of parents out there that's a lot of people told me my kid is way years ahead. He's 5 years old, but he can dribble like nobody ever saw. He's going to be a basketball star. So I got to get him with some specialist. I got to get him with Spencer Tollickson by the time he's 6 to train with him and work with him. Man, great minds think alike. John the mail carrier, chief shot alert. Darnold's cortisol level must have been off the charts against the Lions. I'm not sure if his people are listening to this is going to convince him to want to come back here, because the door apparently is still open. More on that later. Interesting sound from your guy, Mike Florio, I think he was on with PA yesterday and said much of the same thing to what he said today with Dan Patrick. We'll play some of that back later in the show. Here's another one. Maybe Sam Darnold should have taken up knitting before that last Rams playoff game. Man, people are vicious, aren't they? Club sports have also monopolized on this. They are convincing parents and families they need to be in a club sport or do that sport year-round. Parents are spending thousands of dollars a year for these premier tournaments and clubs, only for their kid to hate the sport by the time they finish high school and not even want to compete in college. Now, that's another element of the story we've explored before. The number of burnout cases that tend to be revealed over the years if kids get too singular too soon, concentrate on one sport too early. Now, there's exceptions to that rule too, obviously, but that too can be kind of a difficulty, kind of a problem. Out of breath Halvey is the best Halvey. Well, we'll see what he is perhaps later today. We're still negotiating with him about the possibility of getting him on the show.
Hermantown.
There he is. God, it's just, even that just triggers for people, a lot of people, don't you think? I immediately thought of your guy, Kenny the Snake Stabler, writes Clayton from Rochester. I don't think he was into knitting, probably more so like sports cars, speedboats, and the opposing team's cheerleaders. Wow. Well, who was the quarterback? Who was the left-handed quarterback who had the infamous stage dad? Was it Todd Marinovich? I think another left-hander. I think Marinovich was a left-hander, like Kenny, like the Snake. Not quite as accomplished. And that's an element of this, is if you have that kind of stage mother or stage father, do they even have it in them to consider the possibility that, actually, I need to encourage my kid, go read a book, kid. Well, if anybody, I don't know if anybody's left reading at this point. Maybe that's an antiquated thought, but something else, even if you don't want to include reading in it. Chris writes, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah should knit during the National Football League.
He'll have plenty of time during the draft to knit.
For now.
Well, for now.
For now.
Yeah.
Well, and in all honesty, I had no idea that this particular open would be used to snarkily, for individuals to pick their favorite target and use it to get good cheap shots in on them. I lift weights, writes Solon Blaine, while I'm listening to you in common during my work week when I get home. And the morning shows on the weekends, love listening while I turn my brain off during a lift. See, so we in our own way are changing lives by helping them think about other things, or maybe even laugh or chuckle or get angry, whatever the case may be. Looks like the Vikings offensive line was knitting those last two games. Man. This turned out better than I thought it could have. Sam Darnold does have a hobby. He is a bird watcher, and he enjoys listening to birds in his free time. He even has an app on his phone that he can use to identify the birds that he is hearing. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
I'll have to double check that with Ben Gessling tomorrow. No clue that Sam Darnold does have a hobby. Well, then this kind of goes against the premise of the Open, because he sure as hell didn't look all that relaxed against Detroit or in Arizona where we lost to the Rams. Those last two games, he did not look at all relaxed.
Now, didn't Kirk Cousins do the rocks? Like he had a certain set of rocks that he would move around in his nightstand or something like that.
Is that true?
Yeah,
I don't remember
he
that.
had something to do with rocks. That was like his daily routine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, how'd that go?
Well.
I agree 100% as an entrepreneur at 38 years old. You need to have that divide. I tried to go all in, and I failed miserably, writes Ryan in, where's Blanchette, or is that his last name?
It might be his last name.
Is Blanchette a city in Minnesota or a town?
I Googled it the other day when you texted in.
I think it is. Isn't it Blanchette, Minnesota, a place? Can you find it?
I just Googled it and nothing came up.
I think Tom Brady spent 2 summers there when he was a kid. I'm pretty sure. Luckily, I was able to decompress, refocus, take that experience, and slowly rebuild. Things tend to get really blurry if you focus too much. Well said. I like that sentence. You start realizing the isolation will take you down a rabbit hole. So now, you got me. I'm the Minnesota State champion underwater basket weaving. LOL. Just focused on other hobbies and kids. That's okay, too. Dan, was that sports psychologist Dr. Shelkvist? That, as Tony writes, is a deep, deep callback. Well played. Very well. We have not heard from Dr. Shelkvist in a long, long time. Let's do this. Let's pause for the bottom of the hour. We'll find out if do we know whether Russo Radio has any other hobbies but covering hockey? Let's ask him. And maybe he does, and we don't know about it. Well, we know, he's got a musical group that he'll go to see 50 times a year if he could. That's a hobby. Russo is with the Wild in Vancouver, and we'll catch up with him if you have questions or comments as we approach the trade deadline, which I believe is tomorrow afternoon. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is wide open. 646-8.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
The NCHC Frozen Face-Off is bringing the best of college hockey to the XL Energy Center one final time. Tickets still available for all sessions March 21st and 22nd. Don't miss out on the chance to see a champion crowned in St. Paul one last time. Full event details and to get your tickets today, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
St. Thomas Academy is on the verge of advancing in the Class AA quarterfinal round. They are up 2-1. Shakopee trying desperately with the obviously the extra attacker and goaltender gone to tie things up, but the final horn has now been heard. So St. Thomas, I think the 3 seed in AA knocks off Shakopee, the 6, 2-1. That's the second AA quarterfinal of the day. In the first one, Stillwater dominates Andover 5-0. So games tonight at 6 and 8, Lakeville South, Moorhead, the top seed, and then Edina versus Rogers, little after 8 o'clock. Russo Radio is more concerned right at this moment with professional hockey. He's with the Minnesota Wild, who are in Vancouver preparing for action there tomorrow night, a game you can hear on the Fan, and Russo joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I want to try a theory on you. We had talked early. I was quoting from a story in I think it was the Wall Street Journal, and it's written by a runner, a world-class runner, whose basic premise was one of the reasons he ended up being, he thinks, successful is he got out of the rut, which was the only way I'm going to succeed is if I am all in, 100% committed, think nothing but training my body and my mind for my miler event. And ultimately, what he found out as he started struggling is the best advice he got from a sports psychologist was branch out a little. Give yourself something else to do. Go read a book. Go learn to knit. Go get some other kind of hobby. So you are presented to all of us, fair or not, as all in on covering professional hockey. That's your life. That's what you do. That's your calling. So is it true, or is it possible the secret to Russo's success is he also has something else that diverts his attention, that it actually ends up enriching the likelihood that he will become even better at the main job that he has?
Yeah, I have never told anybody this, but I'm a big knitter. No, I really don't do much. That's for sure.
You get coffee. You get coffee, I guess.
I know this is gonna shock. I don't train for marathons and all that type of stuff. But like to travel and things like that. I mean, the problem is it's just hard for me, especially to just disconnect and unwind. And, and all that type of stuff. And I enjoy this type of the job. I enjoy checking in with agents and trying to figure out what's going on, and talk to already 3 agents today. One bright early who he didn't know I was in Vancouver, so he called me at 5 a.m. his time today, or 5 a.m. my time today. So I mean, I enjoy it. So I would say that there's definitely insiders that know a lot more about what's going on league wide than me. But I certainly am not a knitter or a big marathon trainer.
So, well, the closest you probably would be, the closest you would come would be seeing a certain musical group in concert as many times as you possibly can, right? Well, that would be it.
Yep, that is actually very true. I am a avid Trampled by Turtles fan. I do travel around with them. See a lot of. That's probably actually my biggest passion, is going to different concerts and things like that. In fact, I'm sitting in an arena right now that back in my early days covering this league, I probably saw 3 or 4 concerts in this building in Vancouver, including I was on the floor for Death Cab for Cutie once here.
Oh wow!
Saw the Lumineers here. Yep, bunch of different shows. But that's pretty much music and hockey.
Okay, that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, a couple of people of Texas said, well, the truth is, there's some people who don't need anything else and they are very successful. There's, these aren't these are all rules made to be broken. But I do think for a lot of people, certainly a lot of athletes, and Louis and I have talked about this for years, that, there is an advantage, I think, despite the specialization madness that now exists, to be involved, for example, at a younger age, at least in more than one sport, and that it does bring a certain variety and maybe limits the possibility that you're going to get burned out by the time you're 17 years old.
Yeah, I mean, as we were telling the story, I was thinking about, I've told this before already the last couple of weeks, but I was sitting on a plane next to Dylan Larkin going to the Four Nations a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking, and, I'm like, what do you do away from the rink? He's a huge, loves to cook. And then as we're like halfway to Montreal, he pulls out a book that had to be 1,000 pages and just starts reading it. And I just remember being impressed. I'm like, this is probably why the guy is so good at hockey, because he has so many other things on his mind. But I think that is imperative for young kids to play multiple sports. Ryan Hartman and Vinny Hunas-Groza were talking to us the other day in Seattle about how they were, not only hockey teammates, but football teammates growing up. Before every single game, while a lot of these guys are playing sewer ball, which is basically soccer hacky sack, I see Ryan Hartman playing hoops before the game. So, there's certain athletes that have just a ton of stuff going on in their lives.
Trade deadline, as I don't have to tell you, is NHL trade deadline is tomorrow afternoon, I think, during the show, actually. So, we're all assuming there's nothing that really ambitious that the Wild are likely to be able to do. Is that still your fallback position? Are you hearing anything tantalizing or interesting that might get some people going? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is my fallback position based on if you listen to everything that Bill Guerin says. If you trust that Bill Guerin is saying that Kaprizov, Eriksson, and Brodin are going to be back in the regular season, there is almost nothing they can do of substance at the deadline. If you think that he's maybe not telling the truth or has gotten a further update, I think he can surprise us. I think Bill Guerin's MO is being bold and making moves at the deadline.
Yeah.
I think he would get bored out of his mind tomorrow in front of the Wild social media that's behind the scenes to do absolutely nothing. And that's why, it's still my radar is up and expect something that might happen. The other thing is, I am really, when you read the tea leaves and talk to people, Kirill Kaprizov, I don't think is skating until late March. And if that's the case, with as long as he has been out, I can't imagine that he's just going to skate for a week and return to games. So you just wonder if something came in front of him tomorrow, or today, and that says this is too good to pass up. If you just make the decision, he's already in LTIR, that you just keep him there, work him up to the playoffs. I don't think Kirill would like it. I think he's extremely frustrated right now. I think he wants to get games before the regular season ends because of, as we've talked about before, Dan, 2 years ago in the Dallas playoffs, he missed 13 straight games and then was sat out 2 of the last 4 games. And he said after that season that he was completely rusty in the playoffs and that he needs a runway to get ready. And I think that is the big reason why they're trying to be conservative here. And not say that he's completely out for the year, because I think they want to get him out. But the surgeon that was picked to do the type of surgery that he has extremely, it's very clear to me, has an extremely conservative timetable for this type of surgery comparative to the surgeries that other Wild players have had that are similar to this. So I think they are even shocked at how long this is taking for him to get back. I don't think Kirill is extremely excited with how long this doctor wants him to stay out. And so right now, I just don't get the impression that he's going to be on the ice anytime soon. So if that's the case, if all of a sudden tomorrow or later today, something was put in front of him, I'm not saying even Brock Nelson, but something of substance that can help this team down the stretch, I think he would at least consider it. And so, the one guy that I think makes a lot of sense is Brock Besser. First of all, Vancouver has another salary retention spot, so you could probably take get them to retain some salary. And the other thing is, I don't think they're getting a lot of action on Brock right now, the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think and Jim Rutherford's MO is he is, even if a team's in a playoff spot, he's willing to, or trying to fight for a playoff spot. If he's going to lose a guy like Besser for nothing, and it certainly sounds like Besser is going to be done here in Vancouver after the season, I think he would consider moving him. And if I'm Bill, I make that if Besser's not off the table at like 1:30 tomorrow Central Time, I make that call to Vancouver and see if you can get him at an incredible bargain and a high pick or something like that. And so that's why I just because of Bill's MO of not wanting to just sit on the sidelines and do nothing, I just still am keeping my radar up and not trusting exactly that he is saying they have no flexibility.
That is a very interesting observation. How tricky does this get too? That they obviously the long-term plan is to keep Kaprizov and to keep him happy. So does that enter into? I mean, do you think deep down they'd say, given how long this might take, we are better off shutting him down, but we're worried that it might annoy him enough that then we put ourselves in a position that it gets a little trickier, making sure that he never leaves Minnesota?
I think it's actually the opposite. I mean, this is his agent that found this doctor and came up with this. Like they from all my reporting that I have is like, the type of surgery that he had that I'm really not at liberty to say is stuff that Wild players have had done, and it's been other doctors that have done it, and so it's this agent that found this doctor in New York that essentially did the surgery, and that's him that's come up with this timeline. That I'm not saying it's wrong. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. This is not a this is not a witch doctor. This is a reputable doctor that did the surgery, and if it's this type of timetable, this was Kirill knew what he was getting into when they decided to go with this route with this doctor. So, I think the Wild would have loved to have had him back minimum 4 weeks. I think when Bill Guerin said minimum 4 weeks, he was not fibbing. I think that's just the timetable for the type of surgery they had that their history has been, and then things changed obviously in those couple days when they decided which doctor to use. So. I think, the big thing here is just making sure that he gets completely healthy. And I just don't think it's going to be an easy ramp up to the season I was talking to Lou Nanne about this in Seattle, and I'm sure he has told you this on the radio before, but, just because Kirill is back when he's back doesn't mean he's 100% healthy.
Yep.
You got to get into game shape. You got to get into game situations where your hands are keeping up with your mind and things like that. And we have historically seen Kirill Kaprizov come back from injury and be rusty. And so it's not an easy thing if he just starts skating at the end of March to just assume that by mid-April he's going to be ready to play. So I think they'd love to give him a runway of regular season games, but if he's not ready, he's not ready. And if that's the case, I do think that the Wild need to make a business decision and say to themselves, look, Kirill, we know you want to get back with 3-4 games left, but right now we have this great opportunity to make this trade for this player, and we're going to just shelve you for the rest of the year. And then we're not even talking about Eriksson and Brodin. Perhaps they're the ones that are going to be shelved. We don't know. I mean, it's murky with both their timetables as well. So that's why, because they have three guys that are essentially week to week, I just don't buy the fact that one of them might, not be just at some point tomorrow, they'll find something that's too appetizing and to say to one of them, look, your timetable is getting back at this date. Let's just hold you out a couple extra games, get you ready for the have ready for the playoffs.
But if part of
make the trade,
if part of the Kaprizov feeling in the past has been, I need a runway, and then they discourage the runway for the reasons you lay out, is that liable to annoy him?
Well, that might. And that's why, to me, having Brodin or Eriksson out too might be the situation. We're just talking about Kirill. I mean, maybe it's Eriksson Ek. Eriksson Ek has a broken bone in his leg that I understand. And we've seen him try to rush back before and get re-injured. We saw in the playoffs against Dallas, right? He broke his, I think it was his tib on that block shot of Evgeny Malkin and, late in that season in Pittsburgh. And he was supposed to miss 6 weeks. He tried to come back in 2. We saw him skating on it for a week, doing stops and starts, all that type of stuff. And then he plays one shift in the playoff game at home and immediately got hurt again. Or clearly he wasn't ready to come back. And so, I think with that history too, if he is, somebody that I'm less sure on his timetable at the time of the injury. I kept on hearing 6 to 8 weeks, but it is Eriksson Ek, and it wouldn't shock me if he's, absolutely itching to get back right now, and he's going to try to push himself. But if it is same thing, if like deep down Bill Guerin knows the timetable is, late March, early April, there's another one that you can keep out. And then again with Brodin, we don't know what's going on with him. We saw that he blocked a shot with the inside of his knee, which could be a lot of things there. And if that's the case, maybe he's out. So I just think with 3 guys out, it just creates sort of an intrigue tomorrow that even though Bill's saying they have no flexibility, deep down we all know with one decision they'd have a ton of flexibility to make moves tomorrow.
What is the key to this club successfully treading water until presumably they get some of these pieces back?
Well, they got to defend really, really well, and they've got to play, to me, on their toes. Like, it was really shocking to watch the way that Seattle game unfolded the other night. They were so good in the first half of the game, and then they had registered one shot on net in the last, I've never seen this before, 30 minutes and 1 second, and somehow still won. It's crazy. And it's not like they were under siege in that game, but man, they just defended way too much. So they've got to just get into a position where, sorry, I just keep on looking at my phone to make sure nothing's going on here. Although, if something is going on, Bill Guerin is just having a conversation with Quinn Hughes, who's out for Vancouver right now.
Ooh.
So it'd be a great poker face. I just think that they got to play more on the offensive attack. They got to continue to get the scoring, better play from a lot of their players. I love that Hartman's back. I thought Hartman was really good the other night. Obviously, you would have loved to have buried that puck with 5 minutes to go in that game. Pinnistros has been great. Goudreau's playing really well. Johansson's probably actually been one of their best forwards since the Four Nations break. They just got to continue to get that. This is a true team effort that's going to need to be, made. Luckily, they have a ton of home games coming up. They're starting to play much, much better at home. They've won, 3 in a row at home, I believe. Or actually, maybe they lost that one Detroit game. But they're starting to play better, and but they almost got to play, perfect hockey to win without these guys. And it concerns me, the depth of the blue line. Like, they're one injury away from really some significant trouble without Brodin. And so they've just got to figure out a way. With this 3 games in a row, it's got to be a record that nobody's gotten hurt right now. So they've got to continue to also have good health.
A couple texts have come in for Russo Radio. This one, I didn't see this one coming. Is there a chance the Wild swing a monster trade comparable to what the Mavericks and Lakers did, where we include Kaprizov? He's on the older side in terms he had to play some of his rookie years in Russia. Just curious. That would be a blockbuster, especially with him injured, by the way. Yeah, that seems unlikely.
No, that's not happening. The only, people keep on asking me, any chance the Wild go after Rantanen this summer? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If Kaprizov is not going to find an extension, you go after Rantanen. I mean, it's that simple. They're not going to be able to have both of them.
Where was the other one I had? Where is it? Hold on a second. It's coming to me. Let me scroll up. Don't forget the Wild are in action tomorrow night on the Fan against the Vancouver Canucks, and that's where Russo is now. Has practice just started? Is that right?
Yeah, they're about 3/4 the way through right now. They went on a little earlier than expected today.
All right, that seems fair.
Everybody's out there. That's always the first thing you do around the trade deadline is take roll call.
That's not bad. Who's going to be in the net tomorrow night? Do we know?
Gus. I assume Gus.
So is Gus? How do we feel about Gus? Is he regaining his form?
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, he had the shutout 2 games ago, and in the last game, there's no reason why they should have won that game to go one shot in the last half of the game. He was outstanding down the stretch, especially in the third period where he stopped every shot, and he looks good, and they need that. That's the one thing that I didn't mention to you when you asked what needs to happen for them to keep their head above water. They've got to continue to get great goaltending. I assume that he starts tomorrow, then they come back with Marc-Andre Fleury Sunday afternoon, and what would be his final start against Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, and that Pittsburgh crew.
Michael wants to know the chances you think that Ovechkin might break the Gretzky goal scoring record in St. Paul on the 27th of March. What do we think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say I hope it happens if you're a Wild fan. I guess have it happen if you're a Wild fan, have the Wild win. But I think it would be incredible. I actually covered his first NHL game. I remember sitting down with him and a bunch of reporters at the Tampa Marriott Waterside in 2004 when he spoke no English. He came, that's the NHL brings top prospects into all the Stanley Cup finals, and we sat with him in a ballroom, and it was, this young pimply kid from Russia that spoke no English. Still remember what he was wearing, and then he, here we are, later, and he's about to break a record. So he's 10 goals away. I think he's going to do it this season, and March 27th seems like a really fun time for it to happen.
It'd be a hell of a story, absolutely. I know you'd love writing that. Zach wants to know what you're doing right now. It sounds like Russo's making margaritas. That's just pucks against the boards, isn't it? Isn't that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Apparently the Wild can't hit the net today. They're hitting the boards last. So.
Yeah. What else is new? And face-offs. We're not very good at face-offs again, are we?
No, and they could have had Nico Sturm today, but he was traded to Florida.
Ooh.
Which, by the way, like that's one trade that makes me also think that, second guess myself on whether or not, he's willing to do anything, because, I think the Wild had a lot of interest in Nico, would have a lot of interest in Nico, great penalty killer, awesome in the face-off circle, and for him to only go for a fourth, either means the Wild don't have the cap space, or they are working on something other bigger stuff and want to keep themselves some options.
Interesting. Well, what time's the deadline tomorrow? Is it 3:00 Central?
2 Central.
2 Central.
Here.
Okay.
So it's gonna be weird. This is gonna be. I remember years and years ago being in Calgary when Eric Belanger was pulled off the ice to go to Washington Capitals in a trade, and this will be interesting. So the deadline is at noon tomorrow Pacific time. Well, the morning skates at 11:30. So the deadline's going to pass while they are on the ice. So we'll actually get reactions from the players, maybe even see somebody pulled off the ice. Who knows? And then we'll all rush, those of us on the traveling media that are here at the arena, we'll rush over to the team hotel to get Bill. So this is one of the rare times that the Wild will actually be on the ice as the deadline goes. A lot of times you're, trying to figure out a way to get reaction. This time we'll be able to go walk into a locker room after the deadline and actually get our pick of the litter.
Well, you can pretty much count on the fact that if we do make a blockbuster deal, we're going to need some bonus Russo tomorrow night after it happens. So be prepared.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Have fun in Vancouver. Thanks for the time as always. We'll chat soon.
Yep, see you, Dan.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
That is Russo Radio, a man of many hobbies, as it turns out. Coffee and seeing concerts, going to concerts. Those are probably the two big things for him. He couldn't come up with anything else, I don't think. It's the top of the hour pause. We'll get to some other interesting, tantalizing texts that have come in on two subjects we've explored early in this show. But we'll have to actually put that off more than I think about it because Chip Scoggins is coming up. Our old pal Chip Scoggins. Interesting piece, kind of attempting to examine the future of Golden Gopher men's basketball. Will that future include a reprieve for Ben Johnson? We'll get Scoggins to answer that question and get to some other stuff as well.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
One lottery ticket makes a big difference for our state students. And when I say big, I mean bigger than jackpot big. Since 2002, South Carolina students have benefited from more than $6 billion in lottery-funded scholarships and grants, including the Life, Hope, and Palmetto Fellow Scholarships. With every lottery play, you're supporting our students, and that adds up in a big way. That's why education is our middle name. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.